Okay, straight into it. Welcome back to another Mikey Two Hands video. Today I'm going to be restoring a aluminium frame bike. This is actually a Cannondale American brand bike. That's an aluminium frame. I bought this bike on eBay for $150, and I'm going to restore it. I'm actually going to make this into an e-bike, so check out one of my other videos for e-bike conversion. But this bike needs a little bit of work to it. Actually, I'm going to actually strip it back and repaint it, because there's a few areas on this bike that has got a bit of aluminium oxidization. Now that's when the oxygen gets through to the aluminium frame, and it causes this white powdery bubbling effect on the paint. So I'm going to strip it right back and repaint it. So stick with me and I'll show you how. Thing you're going to want to do is take all the pieces off. So wheels off, handlebars off, brakes, gears, cables, and pedals. Get those all off, so you're just down to your bare frame. Now if you look at this frame, we'll have a look at the blemishes. So that oxidization I was talking to you about was particularly bad on the rear forks here. So if I zoom in a little bit, you can see how white and powdery it is underneath, and the paint just won't stick to that. So we're going to need to sand that right back. A few other scratches and dings on this frame. Once again, you can see it's a bit white and powdery under there, and that's a particular thing you get with aluminium frames. Another couple of bubbling areas there. So as you can see now, I've sanded back the worst bits on the frame, and I've really got stuck into this with some high grit sandpaper, so 100 grit sandpaper, and that's really taken all that oxidization out of that back fork area, as well as the dings that were on the top tube as well. So I have, as you can see now from zooming, there's some little lines there on the frame from the grit of the sandpaper, but I'm not too worried about that. That'll really give the etching primer some surface area to adhere to. Down here I've taken off the decals of the Cannondale logo, but some of the decals are really thin and you won't even notice those once I paint over top of them, so I didn't worry about sanding those ones back. But as you can see, I've gone right around the frame now, taken all the scratches and dings out of it, and all that oxidization as well. Right, so once you've got your frame sanded back, the next thing you're going to need to do in preparation for painting is give it a good clean. Now I like to use methylated spirits, so get a clean rag, douse it in meths, and wipe the frame down. That'll just get rid of all the dust and contaminants that are on the frame, and make sure that your primer and paint stick properly. Next you're going to need a good quality etching primer. Now you're going to need to get one that's specifically for aluminium. There are primers out there that's mainly for steel, but you're going to need one that's for aluminium, and that'll just prepare the frame so your paint will stick to it. So once you've got that cleaned down and you've got all the bits that you don't want to be painted taped up, then you're ready to go. Okay, so now you see it with the first coat of etching primer. When I'm painting, I hold it by the down tube, so that little patch in the middle there hasn't been painted yet, but I'll get to that in a second. Just looking around the frame, a couple of little blemishes. Once it's all this nice matte primer colour, you can really see the little blemishes. So a couple of little spots I'll go around and I'll sand back. So I usually give it 24 hours after I've put the etching primer on to really let it get in. It actually causes a chemical reaction with the aluminium and really adheres to it. So I like to give it 24 hours, let it really dry, and then go around and find a couple of little blemishes like this one here that's really standing out. So I'll sand that back and hit that with a bit more etching primer, and go around again. So using quite a fine grade sandpaper now. That's like a 200 to 240 grit piece of sandpaper there, just to do those touch-up bits with. Okay, the next thing we're going to have a look at is how to fix deep scratches. So as you can see here, there's quite a deep scratch here on the rear chainstay. So what we're going to do, rather than just coating that with spray paint and sanding it back, it's going to take 100 coats to fill that gap. So what I like to do is get a piece of cardboard or an empty shoebox in this case, and just spray some of the etching primer in there, and then using a kid's paintbrush, like this one, just a little tiny one, little fine one. We'll just scoop up some of that concentrated primer, and we'll just blob that into the deeper scratches and let that dry. And what that'll do is it'll just fill up the divot of the scratch as so, and that'll really fast track filling in those deeper scratches and dings on your bike. So just a couple of dabs there, and what you want to do is just overfill it so you can then sand it back flat. And here you can see I've done a first sanding, and you can see in the middle of the crack it's pretty much filled up with the dried primer paint. I'll probably have to do this 1 or 2 times just to really fill up that crack. So as you can see now, I've sprayed over it, and that'll just show if I've got anything left to do, and there's still a little bit of a dent there, so I'll just go over that and blob it out again, and now it's sanded back and painted over the top, so that's nice and smooth now. So when my top coat of paint goes on, you won't even know that was there. Okay, the next tip to get a smooth finish on your primer is I like to use the back side of the sandpaper, and I use the sandpaper that's got a cloth base. So as you can see from that, it's quite similar to denim material, and just by turning it over and rubbing it over the primer, you can get that nice and smooth. As you can see, the area that we filled in before is nicely smooth now as well, and once we're happy with that, we're just about ready for paint. So in this case, I'm going to use a Satin Finish black. Now satin is sort of halfway between gloss and matte. That just gives a nice flat finish. So keeping the can upright at all times, try to move the frame around so you can always keep your can in an upright position, and using nice long strokes on the long parts and quick dabs on the areas like this that are joined, you'll get good coverage. Now in the first coat, what we're looking for is just to get a nice even coat over the whole frame, and then we're going to come back and do a second coat to make sure we got a really good finish. So as you can see, I'm holding the frame by the seat tube in the middle. That gives me a lot of flexibility to turn the frame around and keep it at an angle where I can keep the can mostly straight up and down, and that'll help me get the best quality paint job. Now I like to keep the can about 20 centimeters away from the frame, and that generally helps me avoid getting runs in the paint. And once I'm done with the first coat, I can then go back and hold the frame in a different area and paint that center area that I'm holding onto now. Now next tip, always clean your paint nozzles between coats. As you can see, the end of the nozzle is totally covered in paint, and if I was to do another coat now, it would cause blobs and spitting in the paint. So I like to use methylated spirits once again on a clean piece of paper towel or a rag, and just clean that nozzle really well. Once you're happy you've got most of the paint off the nozzle, turn the can upside down and give it a couple of bursts, and that'll just clean out any paint that's left in the nozzle. Give that one more wipe, and that's ready to go the next time you need to paint it without causing any problems. Okay, so I've given it 2 coats of paint now, and I'm pretty happy with the end result. I've got pretty good coverage all over, and as you can see, no more blemishes or dings in the paint. So that's ready to put the new decals on now. I'll probably get some questions as to why I didn't remove the head cups on the head stem there. They're actually made of steel, and with the aluminium frame they've actually oxidised on, making them quite hard to remove, so I've just left them on and painted them black as well. Okay, the next step once you finish your paint job is to put on the decals. Now I've already put on most of the decals for this bike, but I'll just show you this last one. When you get your decals, you need to remove the paper backing from it. What you want is the decal to stick to the plastic piece of film on the front. While you're separating these, you might find that the decal sticks to the paper. Just press the paper and the plastic film back together, and as you can see, that's now sticking to the plastic film on the front. So we're going to take that paper off and throw that away. And now position the decal where you want it on the bike, and we're going to press that into position and then remove that plastic film from the front.
and it will be stuck on nicely. So this can be a bit fiddly. You might have to do this a few times just to get it in the right location. If you do stick it on, line it up, and if it's not in the right place, just carefully peel it off and reposition it. So just in this stage, just lightly place it into position, and once you're happy with that, then you can really press it down and work it into position there. So first press it down onto the frame, and next what I like to do is use my fingernails, the backs of my fingernails, and not scratching, but just pressing down with the hard bit of your and flat bit of your fingernail. Just make sure you get all the air bubbles out and it's really firmly adhered to the frame. So just rub that down all over with the back of your fingernail. And once you're happy it's all stuck down, carefully peel off that top layer of plastic film. So take your time and make sure that you don't accidentally scratch the decals that's coming off, and once that's on, that'll be on forever. So just give you a bit of a closer look, and there it goes. Okay, so that's the end of the project. The paint is looking amazing and the new decals really make it look good. So just giving you a closer look at that Cannondale logo. It's black on black, so it is quite subtle, but it looks really great. Moving around to the back rear forks, you remember that was all powdery and flaky, but the new paint job looks amazing there. So stay tuned. As I mentioned at the start of this project, I'm going to turn this bike into an e-bike, which is why the rear tyre is different to the front tyre at the moment. So stay tuned to part 2. Like and subscribe if you'd like to see more Mikey Two Hands projects, and I'll show you the end result of this e-bike project in the next video. So stay tuned. Cheers.